Hey guys, what's up? Hope everybody's doing well out there today, and welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling. Guys, today going to give you all a spring Ned rig primer. Going to be talking about different type of Ned rigs, different sizes of Ned rigs, different colors of Ned rigs, and how to apply them in different fishing situations. And this is going to be one of those videos that's going to add up to a lot of bites for you guys, because there's probably not another technique that you can get more bites on than a Ned rig in the springtime of the year. So we're going to give you guys a bunch of good juice on that. Also guys, I just wanted to extend a big thank you to everybody that's been subscribing to Intuitive Angling here recently. If you haven't done that, I'd like to invite everybody to hit that subscribe button. It's free and easy. And also thank you very much for everybody that's been supporting the channel by purchasing your fishing tackle through my tackle warehouse links I put in every description. If you guys use that link, like I said, the channel gets a small percentage of the commission on anything you buy, so that's a good way to help out. And also, I'll link all the Ned rig stuff I talk about in today's video into the links in the description if you guys want to get you stocked up on Ned rig situations. Okay guys, Ned rigs, man, it's probably the number one technique and bait that you're going to get a lot of bites on in the springtime of the year. And you can catch some good ones on it, but mainly it's more about numbers and size of fish. Although, you know, I've caught fish and I've been in the boat with people that have caught fish up to 7 pounds on a Ned rig. But what I want to do in today's video, guys, so I want to show you all how I rig it. I'm going to talk about different colors for different situations, and we'll talk about some areas to fish it in. Now, first of all, you know, there's a lot of different Ned rig setups out there as far as the Ned rig worm and the heads and everything. But I'm going to simplify something for you guys, which I think is going to save you all money and it gives you more options. Every Ned rig that I use is with a full-size Zoom Zlinky that I cut down to various lengths. Now, if you buy just the straight Ned rig that's designed for Ned rig fishing, you've only got one length on there. You can't really experiment with it. But when you're using like a 5-inch Zlinky or a Cinco or something like that, you can make your Ned rigs long or short if you want to. So I want to talk a little bit about how I set it up and sort of the sizes that I use. Now, there's two different sizes primarily that I use on a Ned rig. Number one is I'll just take the Zlinky here and I'll cut it down to probably about 3 inches like that, which this is the size that a lot of people use. And I'm gonna show you how to sort of trim it up. But one of the things that you have to realize, guys, when you're threading a Ned rig is the way that you thread a Ned rig, it's very critical that you get the thing on straight, because it is real finicky. It's like if you thread it on a little bit too far, the worm's gonna be crooked. If you don't thread it on far enough, it's not gonna set up against the head. So you really have to take your time to get it on there straight and perfect. And another thing, guys, is when you put your hook in the Ned rig worm, don't go right in the center of it. Try to put it sort of in the upper part of it like that, if you can see that. Because when you put it in the upper part and thread it along the upper part of the worm, that gives you more of a bite gap. If you put it in the center of the worm, you've got too much of the worm that'll impede with the hook. But go real slow to make sure you get the thing perfectly straight. And then what I'll do is, since I'm using, you know, a worm that's not designed specifically, I'll have to see how I have to trim it up a little bit. So I'll take my scissors and I'll trim it up a little bit where the worm is sort of flush against the head. It makes it look more natural. This is the setup that I use most of the time. Like I said, about a 3-inch Ned like that. Now the other one that I use, if the fishing is a little bit tougher, say the water's really clear, or I've got bright bluebird skies, or the fish are really finicky, or if there's a lot of spotted bass or smallmouth, I'll use what's called a half a Ned. And actually, Luke Clausen is the one that showed me this years ago about cutting down a regular Ned rig even more. So you want to cut the half a Ned down to where it's a little bitty tidbit like this. It's just a super short little bait. And same type of deal, we're going to come through all the way, and I'll show you the difference in this, the size on it. Get that straight. See, it's just a little bitty tidbit, like a little bitty beetle type of a thing. And guys, I have caught more big smallmouth on this little setup right here than any other Ned rig size. This is probably my favorite, the half a Ned. If I had the choice, I'd use this one right here. Gets a ton of bites with it. Now the color variations a little bit, talk a little bit about that. I use basically 4 different colors. The first one I'll use is just is some type of a green pumpkin or watermelon. This is hard to beat. And another reason I like the Zlinky is that you can dye the tails on it. If you try to use that Ned rig stuff that's made with the elastic plastic, it doesn't hold dye, but you could dye the tips of these really good with the Zlinky. So green pumpkin or watermelon is just a good all-around color. Most of the time, green pumpkin or watermelon, that's gonna be anytime my water visibility is, say, over 3.5 or 4 feet. If it's in that, say, 3 to 4.5 foot range, I'll use green pumpkin. If it's cleaner than that, like if the water visibility is, over 4 or 5 foot, then a lot of times I'll go to watermelon. Now, the next color that I use, guys, is a June bug. The June bug is a really good color. In fact, I think it was Ned Cady who developed the Ned rig. I think this is one of his favorite colors, is the June bug. But the June bug, I like it a little bit more off-colored water. I don't really use a Ned rig in dirty water, but if I'm fishing that water visibility of 2 to 3 feet, which is about as low visibility as I like to go with the Ned rig, a lot of times I'm using a June bug. Or if I'm in a little bit cleaner water and it's a rainy, dark day, then I'll go to the June bug, sort of, silhouettes a little bit more. Now, another one that I use at times is this baby bass colored Zlinky here. Now, this is more of a shad pattern here. This is something that a lot of people don't use, and I've done very well on it. This will be another one of those colors that is really good on those really bright days, like the bluebird skies, high light intensity. It's a little bit more translucent. It's a good little tidbit there, especially if the water is really, really clear. And then finally, the Zoom makes this Zlinky. It's sort of like a laminate, a two-tone here. I like this also. Sometimes it just, under the same situations, I use the rest of these, but this is something I'll try occasionally. And again, guys, I'll put all the Zlinky links in the description, all the Ned rig stuff in there. Now, let's talk a little bit about the head before I get into the rest of the stuff with it. One of the big keys on a Ned rig that I have found out is you want to go light. Now, this is a 1/16 of an ounce head. This is what I prefer. And the reason I like a 1/16 of an ounce head is I like the way the bait falls with it. It's got a little bit slower fall. And another thing is when you use a 1/16 of an ounce head, you don't get hung up near as much. If you're fishing rocky banks or riprap or something like that, if you try to use a heavier Ned head, it's gonna get hung up a lot. So unless it's really windy or if I'm fishing really deep, 1/16 of an ounce is my go-to all the time. And like I said, if the wind's blowing super hard or if I'm fishing deep, then I may have to upsize to like an 1/8 ounce, but I prefer the 1/16. And I always use it on 6-pound test Seaguar and Vizex line with that Megabass whip snake spinning rod on there. Now, the type of places you want to fish in the springtime, it really depends on the part of the spring, because you got 3 different phases in the spring. You got the pre-spawn, actual spawn time, and the early post-spawn. The Ned rig is good in all those situations. For me, the springtime Ned fishing is sort of when that water temperature is between, say, 55 to maybe 70 degrees. That's sort of the spring time that I look for it. The first type of cover that I look for with the Ned rig during the early spring and during the early post-spawn, so from about now and then again in early May, something like that, late April, early May, is secondary points. If you go into a major creek arm and you just do nothing but fish secondary points, the depth based upon your water clarity, if the water visibility is over 4 feet, I'll fish down to 20 feet or so. If it's less than 4 feet, I'll move up a little bit shallower. But secondary points in the coves and the creeks are gonna be your #1 cover, because these are areas that fish stage in the pre-spawn before moving up shallow to spawn, and it's the places they go to after they spawn to sort of recuperate and stage before they move out to deeper water. So that's the #1 type of an area. Second type of an area is when those fish start to move up to get ready to spawn. And I don't mean actually spawning, but when they start to move up into the spawning coves to look for bedding areas or scout bedding areas, or they hang around to guard fry, you just basically go into those spawning coves and just fan cast it with the Ned rig, anywhere between 2 to 15 foot deep, again, with the clarity on it. But the spawning areas, when that water temperature starts to get close to 60, is gonna be hard to beat with the Ned rig. But the main thing, guys, is just fish it anywhere you think the fish are at. I mean, points and spawning coves are my two favorite areas. And you can't really go wrong, man. And another way that I like to fish the Ned rig is a lot of people, you know, just shake it like a shaky head. One of the things that I found that works pretty good for me is I'll throw the Ned rig out there, I'll let it hit to the bottom, and then once it hits the bottom, I pop it off hard off the bottom. So it just sort of shoots up like that, then comes back down. And I've done pretty good with that, you know, hopping technique, that pop and hopping technique, especially if the water's clear. And one final thing, guys, is on a hook set on a Ned rig. You don't ever really want to set the hook on a Ned rig. You're dealing with a small wire hook like this, so it doesn't take very much penetration. When you throw out there and you're working that Ned rig and you feel a strike with it, don't get in a big hurry to set the hook. Just, you know, feel the strike and you say, okay, there he is. Let the fish move a little bit with it, and then just start reeling fast, pulling the rod back. Don't say, oh, there he is, and set the hook like that hard. Just when you know there's a fish there, just start reeling fast and just pulling back into it. And what happens is that hook, it will not tear any soft part of the mouth. It'll just slowly penetrate in there, and as long as you keep pressure on it, you're not going to lose it. So anyways, just a few good Ned rig tips, guys. We are in the prime Ned rig season now, and we're going to be for about the next month. So if you want to try a few of these tips, I think it's really going to help out, and we'll talk later. See y'all.